What if I told you that one of the most important political books ever written wasn't written by a political scientist, a philosopher, or a professor, but by a dying man, lying in a hospital bed on a remote Scottish island, racing against tuberculosis to finish his final manuscript? That man was Eric Arthur Blair, better known as George Orwell, and the book was 1984. Published in June 1949, just 7 months before Orwell's death, this novel has become the single most referenced work of political fiction in the modern world. It gave us words we use every day without even thinking about it. Big Brother, Thoughtcrime, Doublethink, Newspeak. But here's the thing most people miss. 1984 is not a prediction, it's a diagnosis. Orwell wasn't guessing what the future would look like. He was describing what he had already seen. So let's break this book apart, not just as a novel, but as a political warning. And ask the uncomfortable question: how much of 1984 is already here? To understand 1984, you have to understand what shaped Orwell. And what shaped him was disillusionment. Orwell was born in British India in 1903, the son of a colonial civil servant. He served as a police officer in Burma in his early 20s, and that experience scarred him. He watched the British Empire enforce obedience through violence and bureaucracy. Not because it was right, but because power, once established, protects itself. Then came Spain. In 1936, Orwell volunteered to fight in the Spanish Civil War against Franco's fascists. He joined a Marxist militia, the POUM, and fought on the front lines. He took a bullet through the throat and barely survived. But the wound that truly scarred him wasn't physical. It was watching the Soviet-backed communist faction turn on its own allies. In 1937, Stalin was in the middle of the Great Purges in Moscow, executing old Bolsheviks and hunting down Trotskyists around the globe. Spain and the POUM became another front in that war. Stalin didn't just want to defeat Franco, he wanted control of the republic itself. The POUM's Trotskyist vision of immediate social revolution not only fed Stalin's paranoia, but threatened his broader diplomatic strategy, courting Britain and France into an alliance against Germany. A radical revolution in Spain would scare off both governments. So Moscow branded the POUM as fascist agents, infiltrated their ranks, and set out to destroy them from within. Orwell barely escaped Spain alive. He watched a supposedly leftist revolution eat its own. People he knew were arrested, disappeared, or killed, not by fascists, but by fellow socialists following Moscow's orders. That experience destroyed any romantic notion Orwell had about ideology. He understood something most intellectuals of his time refused to admit. Totalitarianism is not a problem of the left or the right. It's a problem of power. Any group, no matter how noble its original cause, will become monstrous once it decides that the goal justifies any means. And then World War II confirmed everything. Orwell worked at the BBC producing propaganda for the British government, giving him an insider's view of how even democracies twist reality into whatever shape serves the state. He saw how language could be weaponized, how history could be rewritten, and how entire populations could be trained to believe absurdities. Not because they were stupid, but because the cost of dissent was too high. By 1948, dying of tuberculosis, Orwell poured all of this into one final book. He reversed the last 2 digits of the year. 1948 became 1984, and wrote the darkest political novel of the 20th century. The story drops us into London, but not any London we'd recognize. It's the chief city of Airstrip 1, formerly known as England, a province of a superstate called Oceania. The world has been carved into 3 perpetually warring blocks: Oceania, Eurasia, and Eastasia. The war never ends, and it's not supposed to. Whether the war is even real remains deliberately unclear. What matters is that the population believes it's real because war justifies everything: the poverty, the surveillance, the rationing, the fear. Oceania is ruled by the party led by a figure called Big Brother, a face on posters and telescreens who may or may not actually exist. And that's the point. The party doesn't need a real leader. It needs an icon, an unchallengeable face that represents authority itself. The party controls everything: the economy, the media, history, language, and even thought itself. Its 3 slogans are carved into the Ministry of Truth. War is peace, freedom is slavery, Ignorance is strength. These aren't just slogans, they're the operating logic of the regime. War keeps the population united and afraid. Freedom is dangerous because independent people are harder to control. And ignorance, deliberately cultivated ignorance, is the foundation of the party's power. Our protagonist, Winston Smith, works at the Ministry of Truth, where his job is to falsify historical records. When the party changes an alliance or revises a production target, Winston rewrites old newspaper articles to match the new version of reality. The Ministry of Truth produces lies. The Ministry of Peace wages war. The Ministry of Love tortures dissidents. The Ministry of Plenty manages starvation. Orwell is showing us something critical here. Authoritarian regimes don't just use language, they weaponize it. If you control what words mean, you control what people can think. This is where Newspeak comes in. The party's engineered language designed to shrink the range of human thought. If there's no word for freedom, the concept becomes literally unthinkable. Orwell understood that language shapes thought. Limit the language, and you limit what people are capable of imagining. Every modern regime that has tried to consolidate power, from Mao's China to North Korea, has attempted some version of vocabulary control. Winston is not a hero in any traditional sense. He's frail, middle-aged, and terrified. But he does something dangerous. He begins to think independently. He starts a secret diary, an act of thought crime punishable by death. He writes, "Down with Big Brother," and knows, from that moment, he's a dead man walking. Then he meets Julia. She's younger, pragmatic, and rebellious in her own way. While Winston's rebellion is intellectual, he wants to understand the system. Julia's is personal. She doesn't care about political theory. She simply refuses to let the party own her body and her pleasures. Together, they begin a secret love affair, which in Oceania is itself a political act. The party wants to abolish the orgasm. It wants to eliminate any bond between human beings that isn't loyalty to Big Brother. Love, intimacy, personal attachment, these are threats because they create allegiances the party cannot control. This is one of Orwell's sharpest insights. Totalitarianism doesn't just demand obedience, it demands the destruction of private life. Every authoritarian regime in history has attempted to infiltrate the family unit, turning children into informants, spouses into surveillance tools. The party's junior spies, children who report their own parents for thought crime, are directly inspired by practices in Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia, where youth organizations were weaponized against the family. Winston and Julia eventually seek out a man named O'Brien, a senior party member whom Winston believes is secretly part of the Brotherhood, an underground resistance led by the mysterious Emmanuel Goldstein, the party's declared enemy. O'Brien gives them a forbidden book, supposedly written by Goldstein, which lays out the mechanics of perpetual war, the deliberate maintenance of poverty, and the party's real operating philosophy. Here's where Orwell delivers his most devastating blow. O'Brien is not a rebel. He's an agent of the thought police. The entire rebellion was a setup. The Brotherhood may not even exist. Winston and Julia are arrested, separated, and taken to the Ministry of Love. What follows is one of the most harrowing sequences in all of literature. O'Brien doesn't just torture Winston for information. There is no information to extract. The goal is not confession. The goal is transformation. O'Brien wants Winston to genuinely believe that 2 + 2 = 5. Not to say it under duress, but to truly, internally believe it. Because the party's power isn't complete until it controls not just behavior, but thought itself. This is what separates Oceania from ordinary dictatorships. In a normal authoritarian state, people obey out of fear while privately knowing the truth. In Oceania, the goal is to make you internalize the contradiction, to genuinely believe the lie while knowing it's a lie. Orwell called this doublethink, and it is perhaps the most terrifying concept in the entire book. O'Brien explains the party's philosophy with chilling clarity. Previous tyrannies, the Inquisition, the Nazis, made martyrs. They killed their enemies and let them die as heroes. The party will not make that mistake. The party doesn't destroy its enemies. It converts them. It remakes them. And only then, once they truly love Big Brother, does it destroy them. The object of power, O'Brien tells Winston, is power. Winston is eventually taken to room 101, where every prisoner faces their worst personal fear. For Winston, it's rats. Starving rats in a cage strapped to his face. In that moment, he breaks completely. He screams for them to do it to Julia instead. He betrays the one person he loved. And with that betrayal, the last piece of his humanity is extinguished. The novel ends with Winston sitting in a cafe, a broken shell, staring at a telescreen. A news bulletin announces a military victory. And Winston, with tears in his eyes, realizes he loves Big Brother. Not pretends to. He loves him. The party has won absolutely. So what does a novel written in 1948 have to say to us today? More than most people are comfortable admitting. And here's where the analysis gets uncomfortable, because many of Orwell's warnings are no longer hypothetical. Surveillance. The telescreens in every home are primitive compared to the smartphones in our pockets. Devices that track our location, our conversations, our search histories, our facial expressions. Governments and corporations collect data on virtually every aspect of our lives. Orwell imagined telescreens you couldn't turn off. We bought devices that listened to us and installed them in our kitchens voluntarily. Language manipulation. Look at how political language works today. Words are stretched, redefined, or emptied of meaning to serve agendas across the political spectrum. Terms are weaponized not to communicate, but to shut down debate. When political discourse is reduced to slogans, hashtags, and labels. We're seeing a version of Newspeak operating in real time, not imposed by a totalitarian government, but emerging organically from a culture addicted to simplification. The destruction of shared truth. This may be the most relevant warning of all. We live in an information ecosystem where contradictory narratives coexist, where deepfakes can fabricate evidence, where algorithms feed people only the reality they already want to see. Political factions maintain entirely separate versions of reality, where footage of an event can be watched by two groups who describe it in completely opposite terms. Orwell's nightmare wasn't that the truth would be hidden. It was that truth would become irrelevant. That people would stop caring what was real, because reality itself would be too exhausting to verify. Doublethink. We see it every time a political faction denounces a practice when the other side does it, then defends the exact same practice when their own side is guilty. The ability to hold contradictions without discomfort isn't just a dystopian fiction. It's a daily feature of modern political life. The endless war. Orwell described war not meant to be won, but to be continuous. That echoes in the permanent state of global military engagement that many powerful nations have maintained for decades, where the enemy shifts, but the war machine never stops. The most common misreading of 1984 is that it's a prophecy about a specific political system, communism, fascism, or some future techno-dictatorship. It's not. Orwell was a democratic socialist. He wasn't warning against the left or the right. He was warning against the mechanics of power itself. The real lesson of 1984 is this. Totalitarianism doesn't arrive with tanks and flags. It arrives through the slow erosion of truth, the gradual acceptance of surveillance, the quiet redefinition of words, and the steady normalization of contradictions. It arrives when people are too tired, too distracted, or too comfortable to resist. Orwell wasn't writing an instruction manual for revolution. He was writing a warning about what happens when a society waits too long to defend its freedoms. Orwell died on January 21, 1950, at the age of 46. He never saw how profoundly his book would shape political thought for the next century. 1984 has been banned, censored, and ironically, given its themes, co-opted by every political faction imaginable. But its power doesn't come from any political camp claiming it. It comes from its brutal clarity about human nature and institutional power. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deeper look into Orwell's 1984 and the machinery of totalitarian control, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell. Join us as we continue to dive into the books, ideas, and events that shaped our world. See you next time.